Aleph through the Tav, the letters of the deep and the art of becoming. From a blog post of 23andMe, titled DNA Melody Play It Again, before you were able to see, smell, taste, or feel, it was sound that changed your world, and the cells that formed your body in its primal stages were, and still are, governed by a rhythm. Your body is a musical instrument. Everybody plays a musical instrument. In fact, you play the instrument that all others seek to imitate, one that is capable of more colors and qualities than any other in the world. That instrument is the human voice, and you have been playing it since birth. It's fascinating that no two of us are alike, nor are we random by design. We have been purposed, and we were created.
Where we're having an enlightening discussion with scientist and best-selling author Gregg Braden of the USA. When he first began studying human origins, Mr. Braden wondered whether humankind was just a genetic coincidence or was intentionally engineered. Let's now find out how his research took shape.
I don't know who or what or how, but the evidence is overwhelming that there is an intentionality and a design that underlies our existence. So as a scientist, my thinking was, if that's true, who or whatever put us here on Earth would have left something inside of every one of us that tells us we're part of a greater existence and tells us that we're a family and that we're not so different from one another. And if I could find that, if I could find that common denominator, that somehow maybe it would help us to become greater than the differences, that began a search. And I combined the science that I know of biology and history and ancient language, linguistics, genetics, with the new science of computers that were now on my desktop. And Daryl, I'll tell you, I remember the very first time as a scientist that I had the opportunity to see the human genome, a piece of human DNA coded on my computer screen. And all the CTAG, it all rolled down through the screen. And my brain looked at that. And I remember thinking, I said, I don't know what that says, but there's a code. There's a language. That DNA is a language. And whatever that language is, it's inside of me, and it's inside of everyone that looks at it. And some intelligent being placed it there a long time ago.
Using all the technology at his disposal, Mr. Braden then began searching for the message encoded in our DNA.
And this led to a research project using computers, the best science of today, and some of those ancient texts. And the bottom line is that what we discovered is every single ancient language, the letters of the language link to very precise numbers that have never changed. So whether we're talking about the Arabic language or the Hebrew language, or if we're talking about cuneiform and Sanskrit, what are called the ancient core or the ancient root languages, there's a mysterious number that's always been linked to those letters, and nobody knows where the numbers came from. That was interesting to me. So through a process that took many years, I came to understand that the numbers that represent the letter are also the numbers that represent the elements, what we call the elements on the periodic table of life and a physical reality as we know it. So in other words, it is if the ancients, they didn't know about the periodic table of elements the way we do today, but they knew about the numbers that were represented. And when we make the connections between the letters of the ancient alphabets, the numbers they represent, those numbers, if we look at them on the periodic table, they happen to be precisely the elements that make the DNA in our bodies. Now, we have the ability to take the sequences of DNA in a cell and through those numbers link them to letters in ancient alphabets. And lo and behold, the letters spell words and the words have meaning. And this has led to a book that's entitled The God Code. It was released in the year 2004. What we know is that there is a message, an intentional message within the DNA of all life. The message occurs in layers, and each layer has its own code that must be understood for that layer. And I'm still working on the deeper layers.
Gregg Braden says the message hidden in the DNA of all living beings is that which spiritual masters have tried to convey to humanity through the ages. He now reveals what's written in the topmost layer of our genetic code.
The top layer is one that we understand very well right now. The top layer in the DNA of all life literally translates into the words God eternal within the body. God eternal within the body. We don't know who put that message there. We don't know exactly why it's there. But I can tell you that all I did was I followed the instructions in a series of ancient texts following those languages, and I married that with the science of today, and this is what we found. If a higher intelligence is responsible for our existence, and that intelligence created us, it makes perfect sense that that intelligence would have left something for us to understand who we are. And if they left it in a temple or a text that could be destroyed or disappear over time, it wouldn't make sense. It makes perfect sense that that higher intelligence would have left the message encoded into the creation itself. And as long as the creation exists, the message is intact.
I wanted to clarify something to make sure that you were able to hear that through Gregg Braden in the last video that we showed. In Hebrew, letters and numbers are linked, as well as the other original root languages that Greg was speaking about. However, in Hebrew, we call this gematria. As we progress in this presentation and future presentations, we will be using this numbering system to connect words together that have the same numeric value. This is what Gregg Braden used to extract the hidden message within our DNA, God eternal within the body. Remember that we are able to see the numbers of the ancient languages represented in the elements on the periodic table, and that these numbers and letters precisely make up the elements of the DNA in our own bodies. An article came out on the Ancient Aliens website entitled, "Scientists Find Alien Code Embedded in Human DNA. Evidence of Ancient Alien Engineers." This article goes on to say, researchers who worked for 13 years in the Human Genome Project indicate that they came across an amazing scientific discovery. They believed that the so-called 97% of non-coding sequences in the human DNA, originally referred to junk DNA, is nothing less than the genetic code of extraterrestrial life forms. This junk DNA and its functions remained a mystery for researchers. Now they believe that our DNA is extraterrestrial in origin. Extraterrestrial meaning outside of Earth. After extensive analysis with the help of other researchers in diverse fields, such as mathematics, chemistry, and programming, Maxim A. Mukakov of the Fensakov Astrophysical Institute have ventured out and asked if there's a possibility that junk DNA is actually some sort of extraterrestrial code created by an alien programmer. Alien programmer, foreign to Earth, God. We are not a cosmic accident. Remember that we were knitted and created in the womb, programmed with DNA sequencing, by our Creator God. Back to the previous article. The researchers indicate that what we see in our DNA is a program consisting of two versions, a giant structure code, macro, and a simple or basic code, micro. The team of researchers believes for a fact that the first part of our DNA code was not written on Earth, and according to them, it is verifiable. Secondly, and most importantly, genes alone are not enough to explain the evolution or abrupt evolution process, and there must be something more in the game. The journal Icarus says that the mathematical code in the human DNA cannot be explained by evolution. Basically, we are living and breathing holders of some sort of alien message. Once the code had been set, it would remain unchanged in cosmological timescales. Researchers believe that our DNA is the most durable construction known, and that is why it represents an exceptionally reliable and intelligent storage for an alien signature. Continuing in the journal Icarus, they assert, quote, once fixed, the code might stay unchanged over cosmological timescales. In fact, it is the most durable construct known. Therefore, it represents an exceptionally reliable storage for an intelligent signature. Once the genome is appropriately rewritten, the new code with the signature will stay frozen in the cell and its progeny, which then might be delivered through space and time. End quote. Scientists believe that the human DNA is arranged in such a precise way that it reveals a set of arithmetic patterns and ideographic symbolic language. These studies have led scientists to believe that we were literally invented outside of Earth several billions of years ago. This is a word that I was not familiar with, but I was watching a show the other day and they happened to mention it about the Earth beings and calling them Terrans. So I looked up the definition for it, and it means belonging to Earth, of the world, secular rather than spiritual. Just because we've been created here on Earth does not mean that we need to be seen as one who is of the Earth, a Terran. We can evolve into something greater, something that can change into a metaphor through frequency and sound, from becoming to being. This is why we are encouraging others to study the ancient language of Hebrew and its symbols. It is the language of our Creator, the language of love and light within. It is a language that contains vibration and frequency directly affecting you and your DNA. You can change your stars. Let us not be known as a Terran, but something greater than a Terran, one having spiritual values. This was a quote from one of my favorite movies, A Knight's Tale. Can it be done, Father? Can a man change the stars? His father calmly replies, yes, William. If he believes enough, a man can do anything. The word William, will, I am. Through our will, we can change to become one with the great I am.